Wat kunuarado se ogwego, danaskano agahak, wagatanuni jikon izawes, jinue ne megweg gundo, megamage ni honu hunchoda, ayawens jise wadakaride. 2017 is a reflection on the Canadian identity, the first connection that my people had with anything remotely resembling a Canadian identity was in 1924 when RCMP entered our territory and announced that now by act of parliament, Canadian citizens, and we would be having an election. And so an election organized by Mounties and government officials in the elected band council system was introduced to our people. They then proceeded to enter our traditional government's council house, stole a great many wampum belts and other legal documents from the council administration. Among those documents was my grandmother's birth certificate. She would always have a difficult time proving what year she was born because our government structure was interrupted. It was not found primitive, it was not found inefficient, it was not found out of date or savage, it was just not Canadian. If we took away colonization and conquest from the equation, it would be an honest statement to say that I am by no legal means a Canadian. The irony is not missed on me that the reason that I am here on this stage today is because I've been identified as an exceptional Canadian. I have never, nor have my ancestors ever asked for that moniker. Within the lifespan of people who are still alive, a piece of legislation was passed that was supposed to be a sweeping Canadian citizenship ceremony for Indigenous people, while we really had no consultation in the matter. My Haudenosaunee ancestors, when they were made aware of this new citizenship, it was an offering that was confusing. We have a nation, we have a land, a way of life. Why do we need another one? It would interfere with the law of the land that was set down by my ancestors and yours over 400 years ago. We have a relationship that we all periodically need reminding of, and that reminder is long overdue. When I talk about the law of the land, I am talking about laws that precede contact, laws that are designed to include not just everyone, but everything. Today, I brought with me some tools my own ancestors used to record those agreements. My ancestors used to take wampum shell and loom beads into these belts to maintain records of significant laws, treaties, and histories, and I brought these replicas of those agreements with me today to share with you a bit of their use. Since time immemorial, our treaties have always had a minimum of 3 parties. One party was us making the agreement, the second party was the future generations, and the third was creation. Pre-contact, our ancestors were aware that natural resources were finite, and this belt is evidence of that awareness. This belt is called the Teyotsihstokwáthe Dakota belt, or the dish with 1 spoon. You can see the dish in the center of that belt. And that dish, inside that dish is all the resources that you have a right to use and to enjoy in our territory. As with all dishes, this one carries a finite amount, and while you can take what you need, the agreement explains that everyone has a need. So it is the role of nations to remind each other to leave some for each other, for future generations to enjoy, and for creation to replenish itself. This belt, this is a pre-contact record, and it is the oldest evidence in the world of a declaration on the rights of the environment. In 1613, our ancestors, both mine and yours, came together to discuss their nation-to-nation relationship and came into this agreement. This recording is called the Degini Deohade, or the 2-row wampum. United as one family, but distinct in our ways of life, this belt shares an image of what is known as the river of life. When this belt was originally made with the Dutch, together we put our canoe into the river, and the Dutch put their ship into the river at the same time so that we would float down the river alongside each other, surrounded by these white rows of peace, unity, and friendship. This belt is a 400-year-old experiment with multiculturalism in North America. How do we allow for multiple cultures to share a space and to enjoy separate cultures while exercising law and commerce and all of those things that drive relationships of nations? The 2-row treaty was so efficient in its terms and responsibilities that as new settler nations arrived in the New World, they made petitions to have that agreement extended to themselves. When the British asked to enter this treaty, they asked if we could add to the treaty some new terms, and out of those negotiations came this new agreement called the Silver Chain Covenant. The English asked that the silver chain linking our nations be added. This belt here is known as the Silver Chain Covenant. Silver is a precious metal that oxidizes and needs polishing periodically. The English desired that this agreement could be periodically polished, and should be, meaning that we are to renew our friendship so that our commitment to each other will never, ever tarnish. Thinking back to 1924 Canadian citizenship of Indians, when I was preparing for my Walrus talk, I asked my mother why, if this Canadian identity was so unwanted by our people, did they not fight back in 1924? She said at that time it was believed the change was administrative. This elected system would help us be more efficient in how we consolidate our finances and manage our community needs, from health to public infrastructure, things that our traditional Confederacy chiefs already managed. But when we began to understand this administration change for what it was, an illegal occupation of our territories under international law, the realization came at a time when it was illegal under Canadian law for Indians to gather in groups of 5 or more. It was illegal to leave the reserve without a permit. It was even illegal for an Indian to hire a lawyer. Despite these hardships, Haudenosaunee as a citizenship has never been relinquished by my people, and our Confederacy Chiefs Council works to this day. The reason I am here today is to stand on this stage as an Indigenous person, talking about our relationship moving forward and what it could look like. Really, we already have the sophisticated tools and agreements to help with that vision. The problem isn't the lack of tools, it's the lack of awareness and education. When you see Indigenous people on the television implementing acts of resistance, be they underneath silver pine trees or along pipelines, understand that we do this because our future generations that are party to these agreements, it's to them that we uphold the law and that we fight for them. What I hope to inspire in you today is to recognize your own self as a treaty person. I hope it's understood, but I know that it's not talked about often, that while treaties are signed between nations, they are meant to be enjoyed by descendants. In closing, I invite all of you to return home and learn about the Indigenous people where you come from. We have stories as to how we arrived to where we are today. And if there's anything Indigenous people want from allies, it's to be heard, understood, and to have our nation-to-nation relationships repolished and reaffirmed. Nyao dana jutko skana sa wagwego, tanito.